So it's been about 2 days since the Acolyte trailer released, and it's been extremely popular, garnering a lot of views in that short amount of time. The thing that's really surprised me is that at the moment it currently sits with a majority dislike ratio, and I'm struggling to fathom exactly why. I know that there's always going to be an element of the fandom out there that are going to hit the dislike button because it's a Disney product, and they have a clear agenda against Disney. That's always going to be the case. I understand that there's going to be an element of the fandom that is extremely toxic. It's a minority, but it's a very verbal kind of minority of the fandom that don't like people of colour, don't like women, don't like LGBTQ folks. So anytime they see someone that fits into one of those categories involved in a show, they will automatically hate it and declare it as woke. And again, that's not everyone, but it is a minority of people out there. So I always expect that, the dislike ratio is going to be kind of balanced between the majority that just enjoy Star Wars and that minority that, gets very riled up and vocal whenever anything happens in the Star Wars universe. But to see that the majority of the like-dislike, ratio is in the negative is again quite surprising, because as far as I'm aware, that's not happened with a trailer before for Star Wars. It's not uncommon in the world of YouTube these days. People feel very vocal, and again, hate campaigns exist, bot attacks exist, and that could certainly be what's happening here. But when I look deeper into it, outside of, again, those kind of very vocal minority, there's two main worries about the show that I can connect with, or at least that I can understand. The first being around the aesthetic of the show. And it is something that I've voiced my concern about in previous shows. The overuse of the volume, the sets and the designs looking a little bit underwhelming, maybe looking a little cheap based on the budgets of the show. But it's not something that I would have assumed would be enough to push that dislike ratio into the majority. The second one is around the concern about the Sith and the breaking of canon, should we say. Again, I don't hold too closely to canon because it changes all the time. It doesn't affect my day-to-day life, and at the end of the day, canon can be whatever we want it to be. If you want Starkiller to exist in the Star Wars universe outside of the game, that's fine. In your head, he exists. It's not something that everyone is going to agree with, but if you want that to be the case, there's nothing stopping it. He might not ever show up on screen or be mentioned in a live action show, but in your head, it can be whatever you want it to be. And, again, canon is always going to change because that's just life. It's not just Star Wars, it's everything. Every franchise, something will always change because, again, the people in charge will have different visions and different ideas, or they may want to rework something that they think could be done better. And, as long as it's done in a tasteful, respectful way that doesn't kind of wipe out big chunks of, established lore, then I've got no problem with it. The idea that the Sith could be revealed before the Phantom Menace doesn't bother me. It's not game breaking, it's not game changing, because the Jedi are established to be arrogant, prideful. That's the whole reason that they fall to the Empire in the first place. And we're making some big leaps and assumptions when we say that the person wielding the red saber is a Sith, because we know it's been established that non-Sith can wield red blades. Dagon Gera from the Jedi Survivor game, he bled his lightsaber crystal. He's not a Sith. The High Republic novels have established that people outside of the Sith and the Jedi can wield lightsabers, whether they are picked up on the black market, whether they're people who were formerly, associated with the Order who have left. There's a whole kind of spectrum out there of people who are Force users, who wield lightsabers. And yes, red-bladed lightsabers are less common. They are more specifically associated with the dark side and therefore the Sith. But again, this could just be a simple dark side user. So until we know more, I don't see why people are getting too riled up. And to be honest, it's the grifters that are really pushing this. It's the people that should know better, but the people who have earned a career off of, hyping up negativity, forcing hatred on the fandom, and taking that minority aspect of, toxic, and I use this word very loosely, fans, and riling them up, you know, because that's how they earn their money, that's how they earn their popularity. You know who they are, I'm not going to mention the names, but that is, again, an element here, because I don't really think they care that much. And certainly, you know, you think that they would know better, that just because it's a red blade doesn't mean Sith. And again, I find it contradictory, because for a lot of these people who are complaining about the idea of there being a Sith in this show, if you'd have presented this in another time period, if that person in the forest was Darth Vader and he was taking on 10 Jedi, a lot of these people would be creaming their pants, you know, and saying that it was fantastic and it looked great and it was going to be the best thing ever. As it turns out, just because it's in the era of the High Republic and it's not an established character, a lot of them now have different views on it. So again, I think it's all about perspective, it's about motivation to get people to hate on the show, and I certainly can't think of a good reason why the negative dislike ratio is so high. So if you can enlighten me in the comments, please do. Again, I don't want to hear anything about it being woke or people of colour or women, you know. Give me a genuine reason why you dislike the trailer for what was in the trailer itself. Not the company behind it, not the actors, you know, not what you might perceive as the politics behind it. Give me a reason as to why the trailer itself made you hit the dislike button. You know, maybe we'll be able to come to an understanding. Maybe I'll be able to appreciate more your point of view. Because as it stands, I really can't. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun little trailer. It didn't give us very much in the way of plot, which again is fine by me. Yes, the aesthetic of the show could be a little better, but I'm glad that they're not overusing the volume, because apparently the show is not using the volume at all. And again, until we actually see the show, we don't know. So again, please do leave me a comment if you disliked it. I would very much appreciate it. I'd be very interested to see what you think. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you for the next video.